Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons, and this is another version of the EarthWorks podcast. And I'm very happy to have Ryan Higgins with me, who is a new superintendent, or I should say director of golf course maintenance at TPC Potomac at Avenel Farm in Washington, D.C. Thank you. You've been a big podcast listener, so I'm thrilled to have somebody that's actually listened to it once or twice. You're one of the three guys that actually listen to this every week, so it was a real pleasure to be able to get you on here. I've worked with. How long have I worked with you? I mean, I've worked with you since Woodmont days, but it's been 10 years. How long have we? I think we met at Woodmont, correct?
Yeah, at Woodmont, but I think more congressional, and then
we started really getting a little closer there. So for those of you who don't know TPC Potomac, it is literally your walking distance from Congressional Country Club, your former. We'll get into all this, but it's in the heart of Washington, D.C., and I will contend, and I think most of you that live in that area as golf course superintendents will contend, it is the worst place in the world to try to grow grass. I mean, it is arguably the worst place in the world to grow grass from virtue of the environment. I mean, it is humid and hot June, July, and August. It is the transition zone of the United States. Those of you that might be listening from the St. Louis area, this is an ongoing battle we have, which is worse, St. Louis, the area, that marketplace, or the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia marketplace. I will contend that Maryland is much worse because you and other courses that you've worked on, short of Woodmont, are mostly cool season grasses. So, I mean, in St. Louis, they've got a lot of Bermuda. Most fairways are Bermuda. So I think you win. I think you won the big award of being in the worst place in the world to grow grass. Congratulations. I hope you wake up every morning.
Most exciting place.
Most exciting place to grow grass. That's that's a good. See, I like that.
Positive spin.
That's what I like about, and then we're going to talk about that because you're new. This is your first head job at TPC. Yep. You worked under Pete Wentz at Congressional and at Woodmont Country Clubs, both in that Maryland marketplace. I didn't know this until just before we went on air here, but I knew you interned at Kinloch under Pete and his crew, but I didn't know that you interned at Congressional for Mike.
Yeah.
So that was actually your kind of second stint at Congressional.
Yeah. So 2013, I was at Kinloch, and then Pete actually helped me get the internship in 2014 at Congressional under Mike Jufrey. Yep.
He probably knew he was going to end up there at some point, and he wanted you to get some inside track, knowing Pete.
Yeah, maybe. I just he followed me back to Maryland.
So I always ask this of anybody, and I think it's important. And again, I want to kind of get into getting a feel for what the transition has been for you as the head guy. But let's build a little picture first. What got you into golf? I mean, you started this in high school, right? You were telling me you were in Bowie, Maryland, working at the local club. I mean, was this just a summer job? I mean, how did you get into golf?
Yeah, so I grew up in Bowie, Maryland, and just looking for a summer job. I worked at Giant the year before, so enough of that. And my friend, his brothers worked at Bowie Golf Course in the summers, and he was like, "Hey, you want to work at the golf course? 40 hours a week." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to make some money." So,
How old were you?
15.
Oh, so you started early. Okay, good.
Yeah. So freshman summer of high school, and then my twin brother also. He actually worked 7 summers at Bowie, and then I only worked 5, and then I started, doing internships and stuff like that. But,
and what's your brother doing now?
He's in the accounting world. So
he was the smart one. Is that what I'm hearing? He got out and started making a real career for himself.
Yeah, he golfs more than me though. So.
Yeah, I bet he does. Were you a golfer as a kid?
No, so the first time we golfed was probably like the first week that we worked there. And then that's how we both learned the game. And yeah, that was probably, we used to golf like 3 to 4 times a week. That's
You and your
where
brother. Yeah.
yeah.
So golf was not the motivation. You weren't motivated by, hey, this could be cool. I could play golf a lot.
No, I just like being outside. Growing up, my dad would always be doing yard work on the weekends, and we'd be out there with him. So, yeah, just like
By
being
choice
outside.
or by chore?
I think I was the only one that actually enjoyed mowing the lawn, and the other siblings not so much. So,
Did Dad have a little riding mower you got to zip around the yard on, or did you have to push it?
no, it was a push mower. It was
There you go. So
not.
you're actually working. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I remember when I was a kid, we bought our first riding lawnmower, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I got to cut the grass, but of course, we had a big steep hill, so I think I messed it up a few times, and I never became a superintendent. So probably was a wise move. So talk about the first experiences at Bowie Country Club. And what kind of a place is that's a municipal golf
yeah,
course that had a lot of rounds and just a lot of
yeah,
stuff
a
going on.
lot of so fairways were Bermuda. What kind of Bermuda? I don't know.
Uh,
But it was so it had single row irrigation down the fairways, and so my boss Barry Gilbert, who was the superintendent there for, I think he was there for 40 something years. He
Forever, I
worked,
think. Yeah.
yeah, he worked in high school there himself, and then
No, there you go.
just, but he was really the guy that taught me what what hard work is. He'd be out there changing cups, cutting trees down in the wintertime. He was a workhorse, and finally he's retired, and he lives out near Ocean City in Bethany, but he still works part-time at a golf course.
Do
And
you stay in contact with them?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
I
that's good.
still keep up with him, and he's just but it was the opposite end of the business, where I'm at now. But so we had single row irrigation. My brother and I, our job in the summer, we would key in the heads, so they were impact heads, straight down the fairway. And that's what I assumed all golf courses were at the time.
Yeah,
So
broken down old irrigation systems. Yeah, great.
yeah, we could only plug in four in a row before the pressure really started to drop. But the tees and the greens were just loops where you open the valve, all the heads come up, close the valve after 10 minutes or whenever the guy got back to shut them off. It was just a different side of things. Like Barry was the superintendent, he was the mechanic, he was the spray tech, and I had no clue at the time like
How
what was
could you?
really
You were 15, 16, 17 years old. How
yeah.
did how did he train you? I mean, you're coming in as a high school kid. I assume you were only there for a couple of months during the summer months, right? Did you get a lot of training from that property? I mean, I'm trying to get back to the beginning of the career. So, or did he just basically throw you out to the wolves and let you be feasted upon by the property?
So it was me and my brother, and then about 6 to 8 older guys retired. So really, like we
So there was
would
a
push
gap
them out.
between the 16-year-olds and a bunch of old dudes.
Yes, we learned a lot more about life than we did about draft.
Good. Yeah.
It
We
was
probably can't talk about that on a
yeah, we don't want to
on a
talk about
family
the story,
podcast here, but that's all right.
but we push mode. We were weed eating. Like it wasn't really the agronomic side of things,
No,
but
I wouldn't think so.
it was a great experience. Like I would not trade anything for those
Yeah.
those 5 summers. Getting to work with my brother closely every day, and
Yeah.
not getting into fist fights often. So and
Okay.
then
Was
and
that a
then we
common occurrence in the Higgins household?
no, we actually didn't have any issues. I'm the more easygoing one, so.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that too. Do you have other siblings other than your brother?
Yeah, so I have a twin brother and then an older brother who's 5 years older, and then a younger sister. So
And
there's
your
four of
older
us.
brother didn't get into the local golf course career.
Nope.
He too has a proper career now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he works. He's a project manager at a roofing company, so he was a engineering major. So
There you go. He's the smart one of us all. Talk about so you mentioned this whole irrigation system. I mean, he turned you guys loose to manage this irrigation system? I mean, that's kind of a risky thing. Would you do that now for us with a 16-year-old?
No, no. At the time, it was yeah. Looking back on it, it's but honestly, for the resources he had, like one time when I was starting to actually, think about this as a career, I asked him, "Hey Barry, like what's your budget?" And he was like,
You you
I
asked
tell
him what his
people,
budget was as a kid?
yeah, yeah, because I
Did
was
he
like,
tell you to go away, kid, and leave me alone?
no, he basically said, what I need, I get, and it's not much. So,
Yeah. Do
but
you
that
have
was
any idea how many rounds they were running through there when you were there? What years were you there?
I was there from 2007 to 2011 ish.
So you were there through the drought of the golf industry during the recession that we had. That wasn't a great time for the industry.
Yeah, and I had no idea. So,
Right, of course not. You were you were in high school and beyond,
but
but
there was
probably had a
play.
lot of rounds. Yeah, I was gonna say you probably had a lot of rounds, right?
Yeah, the first group teed off at whenever they could see their ball, they teed off.
As soon
So
as the sun came up.
it was a different world. Yeah, but I learned a lot there. Yeah, it was good. And then toward the end of that, I thought I was going to be an eye doctor, so I went to study
I didn't.
biology.
I
Yeah,
never heard that story.
studied biology at St. Mary's College in Maryland, and was there first semester. It wasn't my scene, the school, but I knew Maryland had a turf program because I went to high school with Dr. Matthias, who was the head of the IA 2-year
You
program
went to high school with Dr. Matthias?
with his son.
Oh, with his son. Okay, I was gonna
Yeah,
say
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
little older than
Uh,
you, I think, dude.
yeah, so I knew of the turf program. I
Yeah.
knew he was in charge of it. So I talked to him when I was, thinking about transferring, and he kind of, he got me into it, and I did the 4-year program at Maryland, and during that time, I interned. I worked for sports fields at Maryland part time
Hmm.
while I was in school because I wanted to make money, and then I wanted to, get some experience in the industry that helped solidify my golf course side of things. Like sports turf is,
The sports turf. I was just going to ask you about that. I didn't know this either. I mean, I've known you for years, and I never knew you worked on the
it
sports
was it was
turf side.
it was cool, setting up for softball, soccer, painting, but I didn't want to paint lines, and golf just had a lot more to it, in my opinion.
Right, right. No, I
Nothing
mean,
against the sports turf guys, but
and I'll have 10 conversations with sports turf guys, and we'll say the same thing about golf. So it's good.
yeah,
We find our niche, and and we live with it, and all that kind of stuff. So you were a year into St. Mary's when you decided I'm going back to the golf industry, and that's what I want to make you made your
yeah,
decision at that age that you're gonna make your career in golf.
yep, yep.
No, that's pretty interesting. How old were you then? You had already got what, 4 years under your belt at Bowie. Is it Bowie Country Club, golf club?
Bowie Golf Course,
It's
yeah.
golf
It
course.
was not
Yeah,
not a country club.
it's
Yeah.
not a country. I've been there actually, so yeah, I guess I should know that. But I mean, that's a
Uh,
great experience having a little track like that where you probably did everything at some point in your career after 5 years of working there every summer, right?
yeah, yeah. I eventually cut cups, and you get to some greens that were totally clay, and I'm like 15 years old with not the strongest. I'm on my back with a cup cutter trying to pull out the clay plug, which
Ripping the hole
yeah.
to pieces, and he comes running out screaming at you. What the hell you doing, kid? That's very
But
fun.
it's good. Like nowadays they're interns who. I worked at Oakmont. I did interned here, there, and I'm like, man, some of these guys just they have no, which is fine. They just have no clue of like what those lower end
What the
clubs,
day-to-day clubs are all about.
and you still put out a decent product for
Yeah.
40,000, 50,000 rounds, however many you do. And still
Any
have to
any good stories from those first days of golfers that beat you up or screamed at you or gave you any headaches that might have thought twice about joining this industry? Do you remember anything? I remember I have a couple from when I was a caddy as a young kid, but
nothing. No, nothing about golfers. I remember one time we were plugging in the quick couplers, down 5 fairway and plugging it in. It's really tight. Like I can't even get it on. And I think my brother had a hammer in the
Oh
cart and we're like
no. Jeez.
hammering the thing in, it turns on and we get out, one of us would drive the car, one would pop out, the other guy would go to a different hole, whatever. And I was like, all right, Luke, you can get out and get this one. He's like, no, you get it. I'm like, all right, whatever. So like this thing is so tight and hammering it out, it twists the whole coupler
Oh,
out underground. The thing shoots up, hits my hat. It's like really close to just whacking me in the jaw. And just the big guys are going up in the middle of number 5 fairway. And, the only way to shut it off was the pump house. So
you had to turn the
there
whole
were no,
system down.
there were no cell phones, no radios. So I had to go find my boss. And, so
Oh,
we had
you
to
couldn't
drop.
even get into the pump house, could you?
No, I had no idea how to shut it
Hey,
off. So,
boss, I busted the irrigation system. Can you go turn it off?
yeah, so
What if he
that
wasn't
was,
on property? What would you have done?
well, that's the thing. He was always there. So he
Yeah,
would take off like 1 or 2 days. Yeah,
yeah.
he was a hard worker. So,
Oh, that's a good story. My only golf real story is I used to caddy when I was a young kid, and remember one guy just I didn't know anything about golf, and I remember this guy, and he was rather large man, and he wasn't a very good golfer, and he just kept missing every shot. He finally ended up taking his whole bag, throwing it into the lake, and then regretting it, and having me go into the lake and get the bag. And I think he tipped me $5 for the whole run. And I carried two bags. I think
there you go.
I got a $5 tip for that. And it was, of course, the bag was then wet the whole time, and I'm
A little
miserable.
heavier.
A lot heavier. Yeah, it's just golfers can be fun people, can't they? So what was Maryland like? What was the experience of going to college for turf? I mean, at any point in your time at the university, had you ever thought maybe this isn't something I want to do, or was it always
No, it was,
exciting?
yeah, once I got into it, I was very into it. I think what got me, the turf bowl that they have at the golf show every year
Ah,
to the
okay,
school.
yeah, you did that.
That was someone, I think Dr. Matthias was like, yeah, if you want to go on this trip. And I was like, oh, free trip to Florida or wherever. And
Where did you go? Did you go to Orlando?
yeah, I went 3 years to the sports turf one and the golf one because we
Oh,
would
that's
send a
funny.
team.
I probably saw you. I didn't know who you were at the time. That's pretty funny. I mean, I was at all of those, so I mean, I used to go stand and watch some of those things. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah, we went to San Antonio, Daytona Beach, Orlando, San Diego. It was good, and
Yeah.
you get to meet the other students and uh, other people in the industry, but you also get to see like the industry and what it's like.
Yeah, I mean that's a good place to see it. You see a lot of things at those kind of shows. You brought this up, and I want one of the things I have on my little list to get you to talk about. But talk about the networking. I mean, you are part of what I consider. Um, I'm biased here, so I'll say this out loud. I think the best network in the industry, and I call it the Robert Trent Jones network, is Pete and Furlong and Glenn Smickley, who started it all. I mean, all of these guys that came through that Glenn Smickley world, Pete being one of the prominent ones. I mean, they're very close, and you guys talk to each other quite a bit. I mean, you may not know everybody from that group, but certainly the group that you've worked with has been very close. How important has networking been for you in your career? It sounds like, I mean, you got to know Dr. Matthias through his son, so it sounds like you're pretty comfortable with that. And I say this because I know, having spent 10 years teaching soils classes and listening to a lot of guys, well, it's all about who you know. But it is. I mean, the networking opportunities, are great, and it's all your choice. So it sounded like you got into this as a younger guy. I mean, getting to know the guys at the at the association meetings and all, when you were traveling around all these things. How important has that been to your career?
Huge. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's helped me get to where I am. But it was out of luck, and I think I was telling you this
It's
earlier.
always out of luck. It's
Yeah,
always luck. how you meet something. It's like meeting your wife or, you know, your girlfriend. It's usually out of luck, right?
Yeah,
But you make your own luck in this industry, and that's kind of what I want you to yak a little bit about is, you know, how did it happen for you?
sure. So at Bowie, one of the older guys who since has passed away, but he would mow greens. I think it was started at like 3 a.m. every day to beat that first group. But
Wow.
anyway, he would he would always talk about this golf course called Kinloch, where
I've
his
heard of that.
son,
Is that any good?
yeah, his son was the teaching pro. It still might be. I'm not too sure.
Oh, we talked about that.
It,
I think he is, but I might be wrong.
yeah, Slot was his name. His
Yeah.
dad's name was Ronnie. But he'd be like, "Oh, Kinloch is so good. It's like, the best place ever." Blah blah blah, and everyone would give him a hard time. Like, okay, enough about Kinloch. And then I was looking for, an internship, so I was on GCSA's website as a student, not knowing what I was looking at. And Kinloch showed up, and I, went to the website, and they had, I don't know if Pete's the one that did this, but somebody did. I'm sure it was Pete. They had a big blog about former interns, and it was really cool as a student. Like, oh, you get to do this. He made it sound a little better than it might
Yes,
have
he
actually
did.
been.
I'm sure he did.
But yeah, so I applied, got a call from Adam Miller, who was one of the assistants for
Who's
Pete
been
at the
on this
time.
podcast before?
Yep. And I think I got the job over the phone and lived down in Richmond. They had housing. And
They provided you housing at Kinlaw
yeah, they provided
for
housing.
internships? Yeah.
There were two of us as interns there. And long story, but the other intern got fired, and he was my ride every day to
Oh, that's lovely.
the golf course. So after that, Corey Wesselman, who you know,
Yes, I do.
and he was an assistant under Pete for a long time.
Yeah.
He would drive me to work every day. So that's how I got to know Corey very well.
There you go.
Yeah, so I basically had the schedule that the assistants had because I had no way of getting home. So that really showed me also Kinloch was beautiful. I was never exposed to a place like that, a top 100 club coming from, one of the bottom clubs with, no money.
A little difference coming from Bowie Golf Club to Kinloch Country Club. For those who don't know, Kinloch is in Richmond, Virginia. Pete built Kinloch, and its notoriety is I don't know if we can say it's the most southern all bent grass course, but it's certainly one of them. And when he was building that, everybody was telling him he's nuts for going down into Richmond, Virginia, which is beyond the transition zone, really. I mean, it's really tough to grow grass down there, and the property is spectacular, and it's wall to wall bent grass and maintained to precision. So you went from I don't want to say a dog track, but I'll say a dog track to one of the elite country clubs in the country with an incredible team of professionals that, I would say most of them are now superintendents, right? The guys that you were working with back then. Was Brandon Collins there?
He was not there, but I heard a lot about him.
And he already left, so you came in after Brandon. So I mean, there's guys all over the country that had gotten their starts down in Kinloch. Was Ryan Seven?
Yeah.
Was Ryan there?
No, I think he was there a few years earlier.
So you came in. I'm trying to figure that. It's been time has gone too fast. COVID hurt me with time, but yeah.
But all those guys, I didn't know him. I didn't know him back then, but now I know him just through, like you said, through Pete, through all the clips, and So actually, I told Pete this too. After that internship at Kinloch, I was like, these hours that those assistants work, I don't know if that's for me. And I was like, I was on the edge.
Maybe I should be an eye doctor.
But and then even after that internship, that built those relationships. The biggest one, being with Pete, and then under Mike Jufrey, there were a lot of guys from Maryland who also helped me get that internship, and then relationships with them, even though I took the job as an assistant when I graduated, when Pete moved to Woodbine.
You stayed at Kinloch?
What's that?
You stayed at Kinloch, or did you go right up to Woodmont when Pete moved up to Woodmont?
I just interned that one summer at Kinloch.
Oh, okay. You
And
so go ahead.
and then I interned at Congressional, which was a very different
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about.
management. Yeah, different management style, which, neither one is right, neither one is wrong. It's just,
No, but I'm sure you learned from both. I mean,
yes,
that's a great experience having that second internship under a different leader, different superintendent, and I'm sure there were some great differences, and I'm sure there were things that you picked up at both places that you now utilize as part of your task
sure.
force at TPC.
Yeah, and then when I graduated, I think in 2015, Pete was, I think he had a year at Woodmont, and then I got an offer I was looking for an assistant job, and an offer from Pete at Woodmont, and then Mike Jufrey had an opening at Congressional, and both would have been great going to either one. The one thing I said, the way Pete did things, a lot more in-house projects, a lot more. It would be a lot more work, and then Congressional. It would still be a lot of work, but it would be a little different. So I chose the more work one, and
You
I
chose
was with.
more work. That's very honorable.
Yeah, I think in total it's been like 9 years with Pete. So I owe a lot to him because that's how I learned, and that's uh, a lot of the same things I use now that we did over at Woodmont and
And you
Congressional.
can walk to a shop if you had to. You're that close from where you
Yeah,
sit now, which is
it's
good.
yeah. Sometimes when we borrow equipment or they borrow equipment, just
Wow.
drive the
Congo
vehicle.
comes down and steals your mowers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's
Because
good.
they
It's
don't
good.
have
That's
a
how it goes.
budget. They can't afford equipment at all. That's very funny. How much do and again I'm going to get this into this in detail, but I mean we'll kind of walk our way through this. But now that you're all on your own, how much do you depend on that network? I mean, you've got a small army of guys in that marketplace that are very close, and some of the best superintendents in the country. Obviously, Pete, being the patriarch of that. But I mean, it's got to be pretty comfortable for you having taken this head job at TPC from being a course superintendent at Congressional under Pete. How much do you lean on these guys? Are you talking to them on a regular basis? You've been at TPC now since January.
Yeah, end of December. Yeah,
Yeah.
right before Christmas.
So how much
Yeah,
how much do you lean on them?
I would say, well, I probably talk to Pete at least once a week. But even like Jared, who took over for me on the Golds course, I got to talk to him a lot. All the superintendents in the area, just it's not even like a lot of the times I think guys talk to each other just to make themselves feel better, feel at ease.
Right.
Yeah, which is true because no one else is in the same position. Like
Yeah.
I talk to my assistants about plenty of stuff, but they're not, you're not the head guy. And I was talking to you about that. Like
Yeah.
I was the superintendent on the Golds course, but I could always lean on Pete, or if, the greens died, it wouldn't, members
It's
wouldn't be
not
looking.
really your fault. It's his. Yes. Now it's
Yeah,
your fault.
exactly. And that I think is the biggest thing. And that's why superintendents talk to each other so much.
Yeah. Well, let me go back because I want to talk about your time at Congressional. So, Congressional is two courses, the gold and the blue, and the blue is the championship course, and that's the course that was just redone by Andrew
Yep.
Green, and it truly is spectacular. I mean, I just give Andrew such credit and you guys, Pete and the whole team for pulling together something that it's one of those courses, and I've said this on our podcast a number of times. If you were to be dropped into the middle of that property and not know where you were, and you didn't see the clubhouse, you wouldn't know what course you were on. I mean, you removed
Yeah.
a billion trees, but now you're working on the second 18 on that property. Did you get much involved in the construction, or were you dragged into that at all, or were you? Because everybody went to your course. I mean, the only course open was you guys, so I would assume you were pretty slammed with just keeping the status quo on the gold course.
Yeah, yeah, we saw a lot of play. I mean, normally the gold course gets a lot of play, but yeah, being the only course. So we would still, yeah, I would be on the gold course every day, like a normal day. Sometimes, if there was staking out irrigation on a certain hole, Pete was good at hey, Ryan, I want you to get over here, make sure you learn this stuff because one day, you'll
Oh, good.
probably
So it was
have
more
to
of an
do it.
educational thing than a necessity for hands-on.
Yes, but also at the end of the day,
You were
everyone
working.
everyone from the gold, until a lot of days were till sundown, but those projects don't come along often.
Yeah.
So
So you guys, so your whole crew got a chance to participate, at least see the process. I mean, again, it was such a transition. I mean, it's one of the bigger transitions that you see. I mean, for those of you who know congressional from years ago, and you've seen it on television at the what was
the KPMG
at the women's tournament, which was a wonderful experience. And that was really that you had just opened when that tournament
yeah,
came along. But you at least got to participate in that whole construction project. In
yeah.
one, I mean, you certainly saw it, on a regular basis. You're sitting in the assistant's office and everybody's talking about it. I mean, did you ever feel like a redheaded stepchild having to, I'm working over here and everybody else gets to do the fun stuff on the new construction? Or were you glad that you didn't have to sit there
Yeah.
and do all that work? And
Some,
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just think that's kind of funny.
I think it was a little bit of both. Sometimes it'd be like, oh, we're not getting, all the fun, but then some days it wouldn't be fun.
Right, exactly. You were actually in the catbird seat in this whole thing because you got to see it, you got to participate, but you got to, go back and do your thing.
Yeah, yeah. And in the end, one of the assistants who left, Dugan was kind of in charge of the project management for the whole practice facility, the new performance center,
Yeah.
like all the tees, the short game area. And then when he left, I kind of took over, which worked out really well because making sure McDonald and Sons, the other contractor for the building, it was a good experience for me to take charge of that and make sure sods ordered, dealing with everybody,
Yeah.
while still making sure the gold course is alive. So
So
it was
you're always dancing. I mean,
there was a lot going on.
so when you were at Woodmont, you were seeing some construction projects, but nothing like what you guys went through with this transition at Congressional.
Yeah, congressional people would ask, "Oh, what are you redoing?" People kind of outside of the industry, "Oh, you redoing the greens or bunkers?" And like everything's being bulldozed. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
full, complete renovation. But at Woodmont is really where I was like, "Holy cow!" Like Pete loves doing stuff in house.
Yes, he's as I say, he's got ants in his pants. He just wants to rip things apart and
Yeah,
and
which
go.
which isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes when you're
No.
assistant, it gets to you. But it was really where I learned like, hey, we can kind of push it a little and get this done in house. We had the equipment to do a lot in house. We
Yeah.
redid the entire 18 pole at Woodmont when I was there, and I think I was asking one of the other guys, like, hey, are we really gonna do this entire thing? He's like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
like we redid irrigation. We had
We
some
work for Pete.
contract,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
He's going to rip
some
up everything he
contractors,
can. That's
but
too.
that's how you learn.
Yeah.
So
So
uh,
you guys got into the construction of Congressional right during COVID. And I worked pretty closely with Pete on this, but I remember vividly, like every time I talked to him, the price of something was going through the roof at that time. I mean, and I think I can share this, but I think he had ordered all the PVC for the irrigation system right before the price of PVC went through the roof, and I think he said it was like $100,000 difference if they had waited a year. I mean, that's kind of where you were in the middle of all that, right?
yeah, I think so. I wasn't as involved. Matt Sumter, who was the
Yeah,
blue
yeah,
course superintendent at the time, he was heavily involved, if not doing most of it. But Pete, yeah, that whole thing taught me, you got to be prepared. Like all this stuff, Pete was getting tested with greens mix,
yeah,
with ordering stuff ahead of time, making sure we're not gonna, for the club's sake as well. Like you got to have everything in a row and lined up, ready to
yeah.
go.
It's a lot of work. I mean, just keeping all the balls in the air at the same time. All the people moving around, all the the contractors. You got a million different contractors that you're working with. But luckily, you got to sit on the other course and watch it from the top of the hill. Your course over there, and you and I have talked about this a million times. I mean, one of the neat changes that happened on the blue course was they took most of the trees down, but on the gold course, you didn't get to take many trees down because of the
No.
county wasn't going to let you take that. So every time you and I would ride together on that, I would just keep saying, "Can you rip that whole row of trees down? Can you pull that tree down?" And no, that's not ours. Or county probably would shy on that. And I mean, it just was, it was so clear as you drive around how much shade influence you had in that property. It had to be a little bit of a nightmare for you. I know there's a couple tees still
Yes.
are on that gold course that are just completely shaded.
Yeah, that outer nine was purchased by the club in I think 1977. They built it, and it was just a swamp. There were trees. All the water drained over there,
Yeah.
and they just cut through the trees. So everything was tree lined. And before I even got there, they, cut back a lot of trees. Which, looking at it, you would have no clue
No,
that any
you
work was
really
done.
wouldn't. Yeah, you really wouldn't.
But I remember the one time you came over. We were standing on 9 tees, which was soaked. It just rained it rained like 3 days before that. And you were like, "What? You guys irrigate this morning?" I'm like, "No, Joel, we haven't watered in
Yeah, we don't
months."
usually irrigate in the middle of a rainstorm.
But we're on the ninth
It's a
tee, and you're
rhetorical
like,
question, obviously.
"Yeah." You were looking around. You're like, "Yeah, I think you got a tree problem." And I said to myself, "Thanks, Joel."
Yeah. Hey, I'm a master of the merely obvious. It's
But yeah,
what do they call consultants? Somebody that you pay to look at your watch and tell you what time it is. I'm very good at that. So, but yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's still a problem. I mean, and obviously agronomically, I mean, that water sitting there is the problem. I mean, that's your first limiting factor, and you knew that. I mean, I was being rhetorical, but yeah, it's and it hasn't changed. And of course, and this is true of a lot of courses, is that they're not allowed to take trees down based on the county or the municipality, wherever they might find themselves. And because you guys took so many trees down on the blue course, your side was really, and Jared is now managing this as well. And I said the same thing to him, by the way, the other day, if it makes you feel any better. Is this, you just irrigate this? No, it's a kind of a joke. Let me talk about the transition then to being on your own and the work that you had to do and the preparation you had to do. So now you have an opportunity. The construction is over. That tournament is over. TPC literally next door opens up, and you get an opportunity to talk about. How was the? Let's talk about this. How was the interview process? Did it concern you? Were you worried? Did you think you had it? I mean, walk me through what you learned. And maybe, again, any advice you can give to somebody that's out there interviewing. I mean, one of the things that I see a lot of times is guys will do a lot of interviews before they actually land the job that they want. And a lot of it is about how you interview, how well you prepare. Talk about the interview process, because, I mean, they knew you because obviously you were next door and you knew the superintendent, but you still had to go through the process.
Sure. Well, when the job opened up, actually, Pete mentioned to me, like, he doesn't want his guys to stick around forever with him. And
yeah, get out. Get the hell out. We're done with this project. Go.
Yeah, I think we agreed. We're on the same page. But, I didn't think I had a shot, because I always assumed, like, TPC courses, they want somebody from the network.
Yeah.
But for this specific job, they were taking, people from, I think, in network, outside of network. But anyway, so the beginning, you have to send everything in. Matt got Columbia. He had a nice portfolio. He helped me with my portfolio, getting all the pictures.
Yeah.
I had a lot of pictures from what we did on the Golds course with, big sod projects, drainage. I always tell guys, take pictures.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've always been very good at that. You always are taking pictures and documenting what you've done, which I think is really incredibly important for any young superintendent or budding superintendent. Just document what you do. And that way, when you do get to the interview, you've got something to share. And you did that. I remember going through that. Actually, you and I had talked about that a couple of times when you were going through there.
And then the interview process, I think the first part was Collier Miller from the tour. He's my agronomist here. He came out to Congressional just to check out the course, kind of go through some stuff. But the first thing that I really wanted to show him before like anything was, how we structure our agronomy plan, how we, basically the way we schedule things and organize. Because I think organization is really key for the TPC network specifically, but for any superintendent, I mean, if you don't have everything organized, you're going to struggle. But so I said, hey, can you come in the office? I just want to show you some of this stuff.
Your organizational, your organizational charts and such.
Yeah, like our spray plan and how in depth it gets down to the ounce, down to the dollar. And I think that I told him, I'm not taking credit for this. This has been passed down from, Pete and his assistants. I know Ryan Sievert had a big part in it, but it's, and then some stuff I added with other sheets and whatever. But so that was the first step. I'd like to think he was somewhat impressed by that. And then
obviously
our shop was nice and organized because we spent a few days getting ready. And then we just went out on course, and really we did not talk much about agronomics. I think it was more him getting to know me as a person. Like, do I want to deal with this guy or do I not?
Can I work with him or not?
And we went out. I think we went out on the course at like 4 o'clock. It was a good time because the sun's somewhat setting. It was in the fall, so all the imperfections, you couldn't see it.
It's a little hidden. It's good.
There were leaves everywhere, and I was like, crap. He's gonna think we don't blow leaves, but they were just falling that afternoon. And,
perfect timing. Make a note of that. Bring the new boss around when the sun is in the right angle to hide imperfections. Yeah. I like that.
But I was surprised. We just talked about the industry a lot, and after that, the next part of that was interviewing with each department head here at TPC Potomac, and I was nervous, but I think if I had to go in front of like a board at the board of a club, I would be much more nervous. So it was me one-on-one.
Oh, you were one-on-one with all the department heads. That's good.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I can't remember if they had a list of questions or if they had their own questions. But yeah, I just told them, what I've done, what my philosophy is. I didn't get too much in depth about all the grass stuff. But
did you get tricked up on any questions? I mean, was there anything that they asked you that kind of scared you, or were there a lot of negative questions that were clearly looking for red flags and reasons not to hire you? Did you get a sense for any of that?
I don't. If there were, I don't remember them, so probably not.
Good. I mean, that's a common fault, I think, in interviewers is that they're afraid to make a decision, so they ask questions that basically give them a reason not to hire you. And as an interviewer, you just have to turn those negatives into positives and make sure that you're not leaving them with any negative taste in their mouth. And obviously you did that because you're sitting at that seat that you're sitting in right now. So let's talk about the transition. So now you're there and you inherited two pretty strong. Were they both there? Both the guys that are working for you now, were they both there when you got there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you inherited two, I think, very sharp young guys, and I thank you again. We had the chance to sit down with you and your assistants, and I was very impressed with their attention to detail and the questions that they would ask as we were going over some soil work. But what's the you walk in the door that first day, you're a new superintendent, it's your first head job. You had to be a little nervous. You had to be a little scared, I hope. I mean, if you're not, it's something that's probably wrong. But what was your first thought, and what did you want to accomplish right out of the chute when you got there in this new position?
The first thing, and I would, advise new superintendents to do this also, is to just view how everything works with the people in place at the time. And, don't come in making changes the first day. Like, I don't think it does anyone any good, because some things that they have going on, like looking back at it, we've kept like things that I thought, I don't really like doing this, but here it worked. And,
Right. There was a reason for it.
yeah, yeah. And then some things we changed, some things I was like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing that, or there's a better way to do it. But actually, that first week I was here, I think it was the first 3 days, was my orientation with Tim, the former superintendent who still works for the tour.
Yep, still.
And Collier was here, and we went through.
Oh, so the first 3 days was the three of you.
Yeah, it was a lot of information.
So was it time for you to just sit there with a notepad and shut up and just take notes and listen?
Yeah, yeah. Just because everything, the tour is a management company for us, so
yeah,
probably the best management company out there for golf courses, but it's a little different than what I've been used to at courses that are owned by the members. So, and just different programs on the computer and stuff.
I think one of your strengths, and I hope and expect you take this as a compliment, but you said this early, you are very easygoing, and you're the way you handled your staff when I came to visit you a week or two back was, you could see that there was some respect there, because you didn't come in like a bull in a china shop and start throwing things around and changing everything. And you could see that these guys like working there and like working for you. But, a lot of that is your personality. Not everybody in our industry has that, laid back personality. I could see guys coming in and, changing. Oh, no, this is how we do it now. I mean, I've been on many properties where, just from my standpoint, seeing a new guy come in, take over a property that I'd been working on. Oh, no, I already have my own model that is, I do it my way. And you could just see that that's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And a lot of times it doesn't. Sometimes, they start to sit back and realize, oh, I remember telling a buddy of mine who had taken a new job, he worked in corporate, and I said, first day you walk in the office, just look at 3 people and fire them just to make a point. And I was kidding. And he didn't do it, thank God. But, when I was a high school teacher, one of the things they teach you is, as a first-year high school teacher, and every one of us that ever was a high school teacher didn't do this, but they say you got to go in very strong and really establish your position, and then you can back off. But if you come in and try to be everybody's friend, you kind of lose that. But I think you took the approach differently, and I think you just used your personality, and you didn't try to be somebody you weren't. And it clearly looks to me as though it's working. Is that am I close? Is that a fair assessment on any level for what you've experienced here at TPC?
Yeah, I think my personality is a little more laid back, but we still, if someone's doing something wrong, it's not like I'm going to yell at them, but
yeah,
we make sure there are rules here. It's not like, oh yeah, do what you want,
Yeah,
but
just go break the heads and call me, and I'll open up the pump house for you. Yeah, no, obviously not. And you learned from Pete, and obviously Pete was on top of all that. So you bring a lot of
feel
experience.
like the funny thing is, I feel like my personality is very different than Pete.
Oh,
but
yes.
I liked working for him.
Of course you did.
And share the same leadership styles, like the way that the assistants work and how that whole system works. But we go about it in a different way.
So 2 questions, and as we wrap up here, the first one is the obviously being in a management club, even though it's TPC, is it a lot of it? Is it a big change? Was going into that environment from where you were in the true country club setting at Congressional and Woodmont? Is it radically different? Are you finding different political pressures? Is it manageable? I mean, explain it a little bit.
So the members obviously have a voice, they pay to be members here, but the club is owned by the tour. So if a member's upset with something, it's not like they can say, hey, let's fire this guy. It's like, well, you got to go through quite a few hoops.
Is that good or bad?
I'm not saying that I'm going to get fired, but I'm just saying,
let's hope not.
my GM Ned he's great, great to work for and to work with. But yeah, the budgeting is a little different. It's more. I would say it's a little more month to month. Like there's more. I'm a lot more focused on the budget here than I was at congressional.
Well, it's your job now. I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Pete
all you.
took on that role, but I think it's a little tighter, like month to month. Like, hey, are we where we're at? Are we way over in payroll? But things like that are, I would say, different for sure. And this is just a golf club,
right?
So it is a little more, in my opinion, it's nicer because I've been at two big country clubs where it's always hectic and stuff going on. So.
Is the overseeing from an agronomic standpoint? I mean, is that? I mean, do you have to address that things differently because you have a tour agronomist that will come in and you are on the docket. You're doing Wells Fargo what in 25 again?
25 is what everyone thinks. Nothing is set in stone for 25. Oh. So there's a good chance we could have it in 25.
Okay.
But nothing official.
Oh, I thought I actually was at Quail Hollow the other day. I thought he said you were going to get it, but that's good. But you have an agronomist that works pretty closely with you, but you're still getting, and it, and again, having been there recently, you're still really kind of running the show. I mean, it's not this I'm just a puppet for somebody else kind of a gig, right?
Yeah, coming into it, I didn't know if I have my plan. Is he gonna change it all up? But no, there's none of that. I mean, I think if he gets here and there's a lot of dead grass, then he's going to dive in deeper.
Yeah, well, that would happen regardless of what your plan was. That's the first job. Keep the grass alive. Anything else, I don't care. Let's talk about that. Let me end up with agronomy. I mean, you have some pretty definitive ideas, and
sure.
And you came into a place that also had some pretty definitive ideas. Is that melding fairly well? I mean, are you able to bring your agronomic experiences to TPC? Yeah,
pretty much everything that I learned under Pete, which obviously, he uses EarthWorks. We use it here.
I pay him off a lot, so it's very...
Yeah. In my younger days, I was wondering why we were spreading that smelly stuff. But
what the hell is this crap?
Now I think I understand a little better. There's so much to learn, though, which I like.
Yeah.
But it's the program that I'm running, they're fine with, and have brought over. I don't remember exactly what our totals were back at Woodmont or whatever, but I don't think Pete ever, was blasting the plants with nitrogen. I think it was always, what you talk about with the soil balance, carbon, nitrogen,
biological soil management. You use less, and that's the neat thing about your network. I mean, obviously, again, I'm biased, but it truly is a phenomenal network, and many of those guys are they have seen what biological soil management is, and you've been a great student of that. I mean, it's always fun working with you, walking through soil tests, talking biology, and you've always, and again, I'll say this is a great compliment. You've always been very tentative to it, but more importantly, the questions that you ask are very insightful, and it's clearly focused to what you're dealing with now. Was the agronomics, the soil, radically different? I mean, you guys literally can hit each other with a 6 iron from the two properties. So the soils are fairly close. Was it agronomically a lot different? I mean, you've got some differences. You got some sands there and capping and some other things in there, but was it a lot different from a truly soil standpoint? I know you and I have talked the soil tests, but what impressed you?
On the gold course, we were very pocketed and all, wet soils. We had Poa greens with a modified sand. So that, and I went from Poa back to bent grass, which, it's fine change.
That's good.
But the program, there's more airflow for sure here.
Right. I noticed that it's around last week.
A lot wider. Open areas, which is very nice as a grass grower. But the agronomics, yeah, they've stayed the same. Very similar. And what Pete taught me was, he would always say, "You're in the solutions business. So if there's an issue, like we had some spots on fairways that we just needed to poke some holes in, get some air down in there. Maybe toss some 3-through-3 in the holes, and the weather got a lot better. And you can't even. I was showing my GM this morning. I showed him a picture from last week. Like, oh man, that looks terrible. And then you can't even tell there was anything there. So
because you had a solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to steal that quote. That's a great quote. You're in the solution business. I mean, that's really what you are. I mean, as a superintendent.
Don't steal that. That's not my quote.
I'll steal it from Pete. I don't care who I steal it from. I'm not proud. But that's a great lesson to teach anybody is, and your assistants or anybody on the board. I mean, that's really what your job is, problems are always going to arise. And my job is to, come up with a solution when problems arise, because they're always going to arise. And, you just look at everything you do. I know, you've been very aggressive with the soil testing and will continue to do that. And, you've been able to, maybe we shouldn't say that, sneak some carbon onto the property a little bit. You're talking some compost now, which I think is good, assuming the compost is clean. But are you able to share this? I mean, the work that we've done, you and I had a chance to share with your assistants some of the soil tests. I mean, this is part of your strategy now, is to get them to understand the agronomics of what you're doing. And more importantly, and I think this is what I was trying to accomplish, is go in and say, why are we doing this? I mean, why are we doing these things? And why would you do that? Because sometimes without understanding the why of it all, it's hard to really get somebody on board with you. And did you have a hard transition there, or was that a challenge working with your team?
I don't think so. And like the monitoring, so like the 2 greens that we monitor throughout the summer, you see all the nutrients, you see everything on there, but it gives you peace of mind as the superintendent. Like, okay, numbers aren't going up and down. Like, we're pretty steady. What we're doing is working.
Right.
And if we're not seeing anything out there and we're seeing stuff in the soil test change, then what's going on?
And what Ryan's talking about is, and you and I have been doing this for years now. We did it with you at Congressional and on the Gold Course, but we do what we call a monitoring test. So we just take 2 greens and we run, for the most part, we're really just running a water-soluble paste extract. Now, we obviously have a baseline, and if we see any major changes, we'll go back and run a standard soil test to get a baseline. But we're looking at, what kind of changes might happen. I mean, so that you're ahead of the curve. And the first thing that we're really looking at is things like sodium and bicarbonates. Are they changing? Because they can be your first limiting factor. Are you losing phosphorus? Have you over applied? I mean, I do this with a lot of clients, and I can call them and say, hey, Ryan, what the hell's all this potassium here, or whatever it might be? And, you can say, oh, yeah, somebody sold me this great product, and it's maybe not as great as you think. But what it does is it just keeps you at an even keel. And as a new superintendent, being able to, watch this thing, progress through the season without spikes and valleys, it's, got to make you feel a little bit. I mean, you just seem so easygoing about it, but you certainly understand what you're doing, and you got a plan, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, on the outside, it might seem like everything's good,
but I drink a lot at home when I get back. My wife and baby don't like that, but I hide it a lot, so cry into my pillow some nights. Yes, I hear you.
There were definitely some moments this summer as a new superintendent, like, all right, well, I need to figure this out. And that's when, you use different resources, call guys, Tim, who was here before me.
Right. Having Tim right there still on that team is great. I mean, because he knows where all the bodies are buried. And
exactly.
There was a couple things you showed me. I think there was one that was really intriguing about an electrical setup on one of the holes that could actually have been flooded. So you're going to be moving that. I don't remember the hole, but you know what I'm talking about. But just little things like that.
Yeah. And I mean, Tim did a great job before me, so there wasn't anything like crazy to fix or
no. I mean, and that's that's a good point, because you walked in behind a very good superintendent. as opposed to walking in behind a really bad superintendent where you can fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
So you don't really have a lot of up to go because you were really handed off a pretty solid property, but you've still made some pretty good changes, and it's always good to be able to sit back, look at things. So I mean, by next year, and we can end on this. I mean, you'll have gotten a year under your belt. Will you sit down this winter and start to reevaluate and start to be more aggressive, make more changes? I mean, what do you think at this point? We're interviewing you in late September. You're 9 months into this thing. Will you look back at this year and build a strategy for changes for next year, or what do you
Sure.
think as you're sitting here?
Yeah, I think I've already started with our
Okay.
fertilizer program, our whole pesticide program. Yeah, I think, certain things on fairways, get some more holes, get some more air down there. Like I didn't know what to expect this summer, like how everything would react. Like I was not as aggressive this year on greens with groomers, with fairway groomers, or going down
Because you
with,
were new, because you were trying to figure it out, or what?
yeah. Then
Yeah.
I didn't want to kill anything or scalp anything.
I don't want to lose my job in the first 6 months. Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
would be bad.
definitely. I think we'll definitely be more aggressive with cultural practices and
Well, I got to
yeah.
say, my friend, I mean, I got a chance to drive around with you, and the place looks fantastic. I mean, I knew, like I said, I know Tim did a great job, and Stephen before him, but and so you've really followed, some really solid superintendents, but but the place still looks good. I mean, and it's sometimes it's the little things that really make a big difference, and I'm sure I'm sure you're writing your lists and identifying those things, and I compliment you on the job, and it was really refreshing seeing the culture that you're building, which I think is important, and I think you're going to do a great job with that. But and I want to thank you for actually, how long did I bug you? Like a month or three to come on here and to get on the podcast?
Yeah, I was trying to dodge, but
I
was
noticed
hoping,
that. Yeah, I'm getting
I was
that a
hoping
lot
Jack
these
would
days.
do this, but I was stuck with you.
Yeah, it's an hour. It's not a big deal. I'll send you a Yeti. Or actually, I gave you a Yeti the other day, didn't I?
Yeah.
So that's your gift for being on the podcast. But thank you so much for all your support over the years. I look forward to working with you as you continue over there, and I think you're going to be great. And you're going to learn, and you're going to make mistakes, but you're in the solutions business, pal. So go make solutions as you go through that property day to day. I love that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for everything, Joel. Thanks for having me on.
It's a real pleasure. And folks, if you're listening, please register or please sign up for our podcast. We'll send you notes and tell you who's coming on and just keep you informed. And that is the EarthWorks podcast. Ryan, best of luck, my friend. Have a wonderful rest of the season, and I will talk to you soon, I'm sure.
All right, you too, Joel. Thanks.